I first arrived in Thailand over 9 years ago. And in that time, I've seen a lot of what makes this country great, but I've also made a lot of mistakes. In this video, you'll learn 40 things I wish I knew before traveling the country, so that you don't miss out on the best parts and don't make the same mistakes I did. In this video, expect to find out the things most people don't think about when getting ready for their Thailand trip, the simple mistakes you can make that will absolutely wreck your trip, as well as lots of practical tips for how to get around, what to eat, and things to do. But first, I want to tell you about what I found to be some of the best parts of Thailand that you don't want to miss out on. Let's start with some of the highlights of Thailand. These will be some of the spots or things to do that I'd never heard of before coming to the country, but that are now some of my favorite places that I've ever visited. There are some amazing waterfalls in Thailand, but which ones are the best? Well, there are some stunning waterfalls in the north of Thailand, and the Wachiratan waterfall at Doi Inthanon next to Chiang Mai is one of the biggest and most powerful that I've ever seen. Another one of my favorites was Klong Chau waterfall, which is an amazing place to swim and relax in on Koh Kood. But if you're looking for the absolute best waterfall in the country, you're in luck, because there's actually 7 of them together. To the north of the town of Kanchanaburi, Erawan Falls is one of the most stunning in the world. You can hike up through the jungle past a series of waterfalls before jumping in the emerald green waters to cool off. Be careful though, the fish here do like to nibble. People always ask me, where is the best place to watch a Muay Thai fight in Thailand? Well, my answer might actually upset some of the people that I've trained with. In Thailand, people fly in from all over the world to train Muay Thai, and there are world-class gyms that have opened up in iconic beach destinations like Phuket and Koh Phangan. But the absolute best fighters all make their way to Bangkok to fight. The most iconic stadium is called Lumpini Stadium, and it's where some of the world's best fighters compete. However, that's not actually where I'm going to recommend, and that's because it's quite far away from anything else worth seeing. So if you're only in the country for a short time, it might not be worth it to make your way out there. The stadium I do recommend though is the world's oldest Muay Thai stadium, so it has a lot of history and quality fighters. In fact, Thailand's greatest ever fighter, Burkhao Bamchek, just fought here. It's got a great atmosphere, and it's perhaps even geared a little bit more towards the international crowd. It's called Rajadamnern Stadium, and it has fights on most nights of the week, with the best fights reserved for the weekend. Their weekly Rajadamnern World Series and Knockout Series are great shows, but what's even better for visitors is that it's located in the heart of Bangkok, in between Khao San Road and Chinatown. So it's much more convenient to visit. But one of the best parts about traveling the country is the chance to see some of the beautiful underwater wildlife. But where are the best places to snorkel in the country? Well, there are lots of amazing spots around the country with the chance to see turtles, sharks, and a whole range of tropical fish. And there are 2 spots to me that stand out above all others. And they're both home to blacktip reef sharks. Blacktip reef sharks are a relatively small shark, only grown to about 1.5 meters long, and they're harmless to humans. In fact, they're probably actually going to try and swim away from you as soon as they see you, so they're a little tricky to see. If you're in the Andaman Sea, check out Shark Point near Long Beach on Koh Phi Phi. The area's strong currents attract the reef sharks, and the site is home to tropical starfish, moray eels, parrotfish, and butterfly fish. But if you're in the Gulf of Thailand, check out Shark Bay at the southern point of Koh Tao, which is also home to one of the biggest species of turtle in the world, the green turtle. There is one specific turtle that has made the southern point of the island its home and can regularly be seen at Shark Point. But if you really want to see the best of Thailand's marine life, you have to delve beneath the waves. There are lots of stunning scuba sites in Thailand, but where are the best ones? Similar to snorkeling, there's 2 spots that really stand out to me. This time though, it's for 2 completely different reasons. If you have diving with whale sharks as something that you want to tick off your bucket list, there are a number of different places you can do this in Thailand. But there's one in particular that's more reliable and has plenty of other fish to see too. It lies off the coast of Koh Tao and Koh Phangan and is about an hour's boat ride away from both of them. It's known as Sail Rock, and it's a stunning dive spot, home to large groups of fish as well as whale sharks. But if you want to dive over one of the biggest shipwrecks in Asia, you need to head to Koh Chang, where you can dive down to see the HTMS Chang, a former US naval ship that was sank off the coast of the island. But where is the most interesting historical site in Thailand? The country is home to some beautiful ancient temple sites in places like Sukhothai and Ayutthaya, where you can go and catch a glimpse of what life was like in Thailand's ancient past. However, in my opinion, there's an even more fascinating site to visit. It's home to one of the darkest chapters in world history, where almost 100,000 people were murdered during World War II. But there's so much more to this area than just the history, as it showcases some of Thailand's best natural beauty spots. At the World War II sites, you can learn about the Death Railway that was constructed by Allied prisoners of war and Asian laborers under the direction of the Japanese captors. The prisoners of war were mostly Australian, and the Australian government has set up a stunning educational centre at Hellfire Pass to teach about the atrocities that were committed here. You can also visit the bridge of the River Kwai, which is what they were forced to build. It's in the town of Kanchanaburi, and it's a few hours drive away from Bangkok. It's a must visit for anyone interested in history and can be visited on the same trip as Erawan Falls, which I mentioned earlier. But if you're looking to take a boat trip in Thailand, which one is the best? Well, Thailand has some amazing island hopping tours to take, so there's a lot of contenders to choose from. You could head to Koh Samui, where you can visit Pig Island, which is exactly like it sounds, an island full of pigs. In Krabi, you can take the Four Islands tour, where you'll see stunning mountains and tropical islands, or Phang Nga Bay near Phuket, where you can sail through mangrove forests, visit James Bond Island, and the famous sea gypsy fishing village of Koh Phangan. But for my money, the best trip in the country will take you on a traditional long-tail boat to see beaches inhabited by monkeys, through emerald waters, and have you snorkeling with sharks, as well as taking you to arguably the most famous beach in the country. The Koh Phi Phi boat tour will take you to Maya Bay and Shark Point and other iconic locations. This is perhaps the most well-known boat trip in the country, but for a reason. It's the best. But if you want to try and beat the crowds, I suggest taking a sunrise boat tour, so you can get there while the rest of the island sleeps off their hangovers. But if you're looking for mountain views, there is one stunning vista that stands out above all others. It's not the tallest mountain in Thailand. That award goes to Doi Inthanon, which is also definitely worth visiting. But this place is where I saw one of the best sunrises I've ever seen, and it's a great spot to spend the night in one of the many beautiful homestays or glamping spots nearby. This is Doi Chang Dao, or Mount Chang Dao, and it's only an hour's drive away from Chiang Mai. But the question I get asked more than anything else is which is the best island to visit? And it's a bit like asking what's the best meal. It really depends on your personal taste and what you're looking for in your trip. If you value convenience, luxury hotels, and plenty of activities, islands like Phuket or Koh Samui might be perfect for you. Prefer a more tranquil, peaceful escape with secluded beaches, Koh Mak or Koh Lanta could be the place where you need to go. And if you're chasing vibrant nightlife and all-night beach parties, head to Koh Phi Phi or Koh Phangan. In the end, there's no single one best island, just the one that matches your idea of the perfect getaway. But now that we've seen the best places to visit, let's take a look at what you can do before your trip starts to make sure that everything goes smoothly once you land. Here we're going to find out how to get the best deals on hotels and avoid unnecessary stress during your trip. People always ask me if it's worth booking your trip up in advance or just going with the flow. And the answer completely depends on the type of trip you're having. My sister was actually just here backpacking around Thailand, and she said she rarely booked her accommodation more than a day in advance. And there were almost no problems. But she was staying in hostels where they have lots of beds, the prices rarely fluctuate, and they're used to people booking on the day. If you're looking to stay in the mid-range or higher-end hotels and you want the best deals, you definitely need to book in advance, especially around busy periods like Christmas or Songkran. I found the best time to book is before 3 months out, because that's when prices might begin to creep up or even jump massively. But if you can book even earlier than that, then that can be even better. Honestly, this is a case where I need to follow my own advice more. This Christmas, I tried to book something last minute and ended up paying 5 times more than the usual rate. But if you need help finding the best hotels for your budget, get in touch through the link below and I'll work with you to plan your trip. But finding the right hotel can be hard. When booking a hotel online, it's important to check the reviews. But there is one complaint I see over and over again that I think you should just ignore. If you see complaints of dirty or loud hotels, that's probably something you should take seriously, especially if they have photos to back it up. But one of the most common complaints I see is of the staff being rude or not doing the thing that was asked of them. But in my experience, it's usually that the person making the request hasn't taken into account the fact that the hotel staff might have a low level of English and that they need to speak slower or clearer. It's worth taking a moment to assess whether or not a complaint of rude staff is valid or not. But what are some of the most useful apps you can download before your trip? Well, there are a number of must-have apps. If you want to avoid getting ripped off by taxi drivers, the Grab app is a must. Grab is Southeast Asia's answer to Uber, and it can help you find reasonable rates for taxis. You might also want to download InDrive or Bolt as a backup option too. But if you want to quickly work out how much money you're actually spending, you'll have to download a currency converter. A currency converter will allow you to input the amount in Thai baht, and it will tell you the exact amount in your own currency. This will really help you to stop overspending. My recommendation is the XE app for quick conversions. Also, when using Google Translate, you'll want to make sure you download the Thai language pack on the Translate app. This way, it can help you out even when you're offline. If you're lucky in Thailand, you might never see a drop of rain. But if you're unlucky, well... When packing for Thailand, you should mostly focus on shorts, t-shirts, and light clothes and sandals. but it's worth packing a light jacket and some waterproof clothing too. If you're traveling to the north of Thailand, you might even want to pack some things that are a bit warmer. I once did a trek in Chiang Mai and only brought a pair of shorts, and in the middle of the night, the temperature dropped so much I couldn't sleep. And it was one of the coldest I'd ever been. But what else should you pack? When traveling to Thailand, be sure to pack sunscreen. It's essential, but it's also significantly more expensive once you're here. And some of them include whitening agents, so you might want to avoid them, especially if you're hoping to get a tan. A power bank is a must-have if you want to keep your phone charged for maps, translations, and photos during your busy days exploring. And don't forget to bring a universal travel adapter. But here's a tip that will save you some stress the moment you land. Change some money before you fly. You're going to need cash as soon as you touch down. For a taxi, something to eat, or for a coffee after a long flight. Maybe even a glass of wine. It's a good idea to arrive with a few thousand baht in your pocket at least. This way you can hit the ground running without the hassle of scrambling to find an ATM or dealing with those overpriced currency exchange counters at the airport. But when is the best time to visit Thailand? In the next section, you'll find out the best time to visit, the times with the worst weather, as well as the most dangerous times. In the red corner, we have the hot, humid air rolling in from the Indian Ocean. This warm air is filled with moisture as it travels across the jungles of India and the Southeast Asia. In the blue corner, it's Challenger, cool, crisp air sweeping down from China. This cold, dry air travels across the snowy plains of Tibet. When these two climates meet over the skies of Thailand, they go head-to-head in an epic battle, filling the air with dark clouds and thunderstorms. This meeting of the two climates takes place every year from May to October, peaking in September when the storms hit the hardest. This is Thailand's rainy season. To try and avoid it, it's best to visit between October and April. But the rain might not be the biggest of your problems. Imagine this, you're in a sauna, and after about 10 minutes, when it stops being fun, you're dripping with sweat, you get lightheaded, and all you want to do is open the door and feel the cool air on your skin. But when you do this, you realize the doors are stuck and there's no way out. Well, that's a bit what it's like traveling in Thailand when it's at its hottest. At this time, temperatures can soar to around 45 degrees Celsius. The hottest time of the year is usually the end of April and the beginning of May. And when it gets this hot, it does actually get a little dangerous. So try not to be out in the midday, or at least be by the pool or in the ocean. Luckily, Songkran Festival is around this time, so you'll have a 3-day water fight to keep you cool. Otherwise, it's a great idea to invest in an electric fan and make sure to drink some fresh coconuts to keep you hydrated. Northern Thailand is one of the most stunning parts of the country, and it doesn't quite get the love it deserves compared to the beaches of the south. It has amazing natural beauty, stunning temples, and diverse wildlife. But for 2 months a year, it turns into a fiery hellscape, and you need to stay away during this time. Every year, farmers across the region burn fields to clear land for planting. And it's not just a little bit of smoke. Thick clouds of haze roll over the valleys and mountains, stretching right into the towns and cities. In fact, for a period last year, Chiang Mai became the most polluted city in the entire world. So not only can you not admire the stunning beauty of the region, it's hid behind a thick layer of smoke, it also becomes extremely dangerous. This post-apocalyptic nightmare is known as the Burny season or the Smoky season, and it takes place in March and the beginning of April. But if you're looking for one of the best times to visit, you could align your trip with one of the country's major festivals to make it really special. Early in the year, Chinese New Year is widely celebrated, particularly in Bangkok's Chinatown, where the streets around Yao Rat Road are filled with lively parades, traditional performances, and festive decorations. In April, Songkran marks the Thai New Year and is celebrated with water fights across the country, offering a fun way to experience Thai culture while cooling off from the heat. November is a particularly beautiful time to visit for Loi Krathong, the Festival of Lights, when candles are floated on the waterways. And if you're in Chiang Mai at this time, you can also witness Yipam, when the lanterns are released into the sky. But the one thing that makes Thailand so special is the amazing wildlife that lives here. In the next section, you'll find out how to be an ethical tourist, some of the rare wildlife that most people miss out on, and how not to get eaten by a snake. For many people, visiting an elephant sanctuary is one of the coolest things you can do while in the country. It's amazing to see these creatures up close, and as Thailand's national animal, there's no shortage of places you can visit to see them. However, it's important to choose an ethical sanctuary. Now, if you turn up and you see tourists riding on its back like it's a horse or a camel, that means that this is not an ethical elephant sanctuary. And if you're a tourist doing that, then you are a bad tourist, bad tourist, bad tourist. However, some people would go even further. They would say that any elephant sanctuary where you feed the elephants or touch the elephants or bathe the elephants is also an unethical sanctuary. I suggest you do the research yourself to find out what you agree with the most. Personally, I think there's some danger of not supporting and boycotting some of these elephant sanctuaries that look after the elephants and care for them. However, recently there was a case with a Spanish tourist who was gored by the elephants as they were bathing them, and this is an issue that I strongly suggest you research yourself before coming to a conclusion. Similarly, I have a children's book here, which is a cautionary tale about not pulling the tail of a tiger. However, in Thailand, there are plenty of tiger sanctuaries where you can get up close, pulling their tail, stroking their face, or even tickling their testicles. If you end up at a tiger sanctuary like this, you must know that it's completely unethical. The only way the tigers are able to tolerate this without ripping your face off is by being pumped with drugs so that they don't mind the tourists. Any sanctuary where you can touch the tiger is completely unethical and should be avoided. By far, the most annoying creature you'll encounter during your time here is the mosquito. And trust me, I get bitten more than most people. I mean, look at me. I taste delicious. Yeah, boy. So over the years, I've learned a few tricks to deal with them. Luckily, unlike other parts of the world, the mosquitoes in Thailand don't carry malaria. But there is a small chance of contracting dengue fever, which can be just as bad. So it's important to protect yourself. Your first line of defense is going to be mosquito repellent. Luckily, they'll be available in any pharmacy and most 7-Elevens, so you can easily find it. But even if you forget, most restaurants and bars that are outside will be well stocked with it, especially in areas with a lot of greenery because they seem to attract them. Thailand is home to an incredible variety of snakes, over 200 species to be exact. But here's the good news. Most snakes in Thailand are non-venomous and shy, meaning they'd rather slither away than face a human. That being said, there are a few that you want to steer clear of, and knowing what to look out for can make your trip that little bit safer. The king cobra is the largest venomous snake in the world, growing up to about 5 meters long. Its venom is highly potent, capable of even killing an elephant. But these snakes rarely attack unless provoked. But if you see one, run. The one that you might not see coming though is the Malayan pit viper, which is one to be cautious of in rural areas, especially at night. It's highly venomous and tends to stay low on the ground, blending in with the leaves of the forest. So keep your shoes on. And whilst not venomous, the reticulated python is one of the largest snakes in the world and can grow up to 10 meters. It's a constrictor, meaning it kills its prey by squeezing. While attacks on humans are rare, they have been known to swallow people whole in Indonesia. So, don't fall asleep in the jungle without someone watching. It's highly unlikely you're going to get bitten by a snake during your time here. But if you are, all major hospitals will carry the antivenom. So imagine if at the end of Finding Nemo, just after he'd been reunited with his dad, and it all looked like everything was going to be okay, someone came along and poisoned all the fish. That'd be a much darker and more twisted film, right? Well, don't make it happen in real life. If you snorkel or scuba dive during your time here, one of the most responsible things you can do is to protect the coral, which is already dying out due to coral bleaching. Make sure you don't touch it, and definitely don't stand in it or break it, because this is the habitat that many fish need to survive. Additionally, make sure to apply sunscreen a while before you get in the water, or even consider not applying at all before getting in the water. It's toxic to the fish, so please don't load a Nemo. Picture this. You're strolling along a beach in Thailand when you spot a cute little monkey. Its wide, curious eyes and tiny tail make it look like something straight out of a Disney movie. But here's the thing. That seemingly innocent monkey can quickly turn into a scene from The Exorcist in the blink of an eye. One wrong move and suddenly that sweet little creature is baring its sharp teeth, screeching and lunging in your direction. The short-tailed macaque is not only aggressive when provoked, but it can also carry rabies, a virus that attacks the nervous system and is almost always fatal if left untreated. All over Thailand, you'll see people trying to get selfies with these monkeys, or worse, feeding them by hand. Ugh. Don't do it, I'm telling you. They won't hesitate to snatch your food or your fingers if given the chance. Macaques may be the loudest and most visible monkeys in Thailand, but the country is home to rarer and much more fascinating species if you know where to look. The dusky leaf monkey with its soft grey fur and distinctive white patches around its eyes are far more gentle, and these shy creatures are often heard rustling through the treetops as they play or chase each other. Even harder to spot are the gibbons. These shy primates stay high up in the canopy, but their haunting morning calls echo through the forest. Catching a glimpse of a gibbon swimming through the trees is rare and unforgettable. If you want the best chance of seeing one, wake up early and bring some binoculars. But one of the rarest living things in the jungle isn't an animal. The Thai jungle is home to the world's largest flower, and it's also one of the rarest and most elusive plants you can encounter. This flower can grow to an astonishing 1 meter in diameter and is known as the corpse flower because it has a strong smell of rotten flesh, which helps it to pollinate. It's known as the rafflesia flower and can be found deep in the rainforest of Khao National Park. The flower blooms for only a few days each year, and people come from all over the world to try and witness it. Thailand has some of the most delicious food in the entire world. And in this section, I'll discuss the best dishes to eat, whether or not you should actually eat the street food, and what is the type of alcohol you should drink that almost no one knows about. People always ask me, what is my favorite Thai dish? And trust me, it's difficult. There's so much to choose from. The most famous dish by far is pad thai, but while delicious, I prefer the thicker noodles of the pad see ew. One of the country's simplest dishes is actually its most delicious. Grilled chicken mixed with spicy papaya salad, also known as som tam, with a bit of sticky rice. It's so simple, yet so delicious. But the dish that stands out most to me is by far the curry king. It's a type of curry coming from northern Thailand, but instead of rice, it uses egg noodles and it's topped with crunchy deep fried noodles. I think the mix of textures and flavors in this dish make it one of the most interesting that I've ever eaten, and it's known as khao soi. Thai desserts though are a little less appealing, but there is one though that is much try, and it's mango sticky rice. Now, if you've never eaten it before, I know it's a little weird to have rice as part of a dessert dish, but it's covered in condensed milk, which gives it a sweetness, and trust me, it's good. Leo, Chang, and Sing are three of the most common brands of alcohol in Thailand, and they're perfectly acceptable. But if you're looking for the best booze in Thailand, you might just have to head to Phuket. Located on the island is a French-owned distillery known as Chalan Bay that produces rum, gin, and vodka. The distillery itself is a beautiful venue, and in fact, I like it so much, I actually had my wedding reception there. When you visit the distillery, it's best to take their cocktail making classes, where they'll supply you with plenty of samples of the many different rums and gin that they make, and give you a tour of the distillery. You don't have to travel to Phuket to drink it though. Chalan Bay is stocked in most higher-end bars in the country, but it's not always immediately obvious that it's one of Thailand's own liquor brands. So keep an eye out for the bottle. But the biggest question of all is, should you eat the street food in Thailand? And if you do, how do you avoid the notorious Bangkok belly? Well, actually, I can honestly say that I've never gotten sick from the street food in Thailand, and it's one of the best parts of traveling in the country. But that's not to say it's for everyone. If you have a sensitive stomach, it might not be worth risking, at least not at first. Although I've never really known anyone to get sick from street food, I constantly see stories online about people getting sick not long after landing. Now, my theory is that you have to think about this. They've just got off a 20+ hour flight with little sleep, and then as soon as they land, they get straight on the beers. If they mix it in with oily street food that they're not used to eating, this could be a recipe for disaster, and for spending the first few days you drip on the toilet. Perhaps it's best for some people to wait a few days before sampling the street food. But one of the biggest challenges you'll face when in Thailand is figuring out how to get around. In this section, you'll find out the best travel route around the country, as well as some of the scariest routes that you need to avoid. Let's start with the best order to travel around the country in. Where should you visit first? Where should you end up at the end? Well, there's one order that I reckon most first-time visitors to the country should travel. Most trips start in Bangkok, so by default, that's where most people are going to start their trip. After a few days in the big city, you'll be faced with a dilemma. Do I go north to the mountains or south to the beaches? Well, I always recommend that you go north first, and here's why. Imagine you're sitting on a stunning beach in Koh Samui, sipping a beer as the sun goes down, knowing that the next day you have to leave to catch a flight to go jungle trekking or temple hopping. Whilst Chiang Mai, Pai, and the rest of northern Thailand are amazing, it's harder to get excited about it when you're sitting on a tropical beach. On top of that, trips to Bangkok and Chiang Mai tend to be fairly active, with lots of walking and exploring every day. So after you've spent your first week or so running around, it's good to start taking it easier on the beach. If you're smart, you might also be able to get your flights leaving from either Koh Samui or Phuket, saving you a flight back to Bangkok and giving you an extra day to enjoy the beach. But what is the best way to travel to the islands? Well, it can certainly be a bit complicated. One of the most convenient ways to buy a ticket is to use a website like One2Go, which gives you lots of different options for how and when to travel, but it is a third-party service, and some companies are better than others, so you never really know what you're gonna get. Over the years though, I've realized that there's one company that I almost always stick with, and it's head and shoulders above the other transport companies in Thailand. They'll take care of your transport all the way to your next location. For example, if you're traveling from Koh Phi Phi to Koh Samui with one ticket, it covers the boat from Phi Phi, the bus transfer to the next pier, and then the boat to Samui. So you don't need to worry about figuring out all the moving pieces, making transport much simpler. Their boats are a little nicer and a little faster than the competition too. This is a Lompraya transport company, and nowadays I just go to their website and book through them directly. Bangkok is known for having some of the worst traffic in the world. Seriously, it can be absolutely brutal, and you do not want to spend hours of your trip stuck in traffic here. But how can you avoid it? First, when booking your accommodation, try to stay within walking distance of the MRT or BTS. These trains are fast and efficient and can get you most places without getting stuck in traffic. But one of the coolest ways to explore the city is by boat. The Chao Phraya River and the city's canals are not only a scenic way to get around, they're also incredibly practical. The boats bypass all the traffic, and they can take you to some of Bangkok's most iconic spots like the Grand Palace or the temples along the river. If you plan ahead, they'll save you time, stress, and give you a much better experience of Bangkok. But traveling at the wrong time in Thailand can turn your dream trip into an absolute nightmare. And I learned this the hard way when I took a boat to Koh Tao one December during the bad weather. The boat rocked so much it felt like it might tip over, and it wasn't long before someone near me started vomiting, which caused a chain reaction when everyone else started vomiting. And in fact, one person even passed out and needed a doctor. But it could have been even worse. That same night, a night boat on the same route didn't fare as well. It became so waterlogged and damaged that it sank. Thankfully, everyone was rescued by the Coast Guard, but they lost all the belongings. If you're traveling by boat during rainy season, especially around the Gulf Islands of Koh Tao, Samui, and Koh Phangan, make sure you book a ticket with a reputable company, and make sure to buy seasickness tablets beforehand. But that's not the only time traveling in Thailand can be terrifying. Sometimes you'll be crammed into a minibus with 15 other people and their luggage, and the driver doesn't get paid by the hour, so they're not always inclined to take it easy. And they'll fly across the motorway as quickly as they can. Considering Thailand has some of the deadliest roads in the world, this can be pretty scary. This is best exemplified by one of the scariest strips in the country. The road from Chiang Mai to Pai is famous for having over 300 bends in the road with steep mountain drops on either side, and some of these drivers don't know how to take it easy. Passengers often complain this is one of the scariest journeys in their life, and I'd agree. If you've got the cash, sometimes it's just worth paying a bit more to get a private driver. These will take things at a slower pace, and you can ask them to stop where needed, making it much less likely that you're going to fall off the cliff edge. The next section is all about the things that I got wrong about Thailand. Here you can learn about the mistakes that I made so you don't have to, as well as how to really upgrade your travel style and how to turn an average trip into a great one. I want to start with one of the biggest misconceptions I think a lot of people still have about Thailand. A lot of people think that Thailand is a dirt cheap country and you'll be able to visit here and live in luxury without spending a lot of money. Whilst it is cheaper than most Western countries, if you're planning to really enjoy your time here, it's going to cost you. Yes, the street food is cheap, but if you want to eat in a nice restaurant, that's going to be much more expensive. Similarly, if you're trying to see and do a lot during your time here, like visiting islands and elephant sanctuaries and bars, that's all going to add up pretty quickly. So on my first Thailand island hopping boat trip, I dreamed of exploring hidden beaches with no one on them. But when I turned up, there were another 50 people waiting to get on the boat. It felt chaotic right from the start. We spent ages waiting around trying to get everyone aboard, and when we finally set off, the boat was slow and overcrowded. And I'm not really sure there was enough life jackets for everyone if something did go wrong. I couldn't help but think this isn't quite the dreamy island hopping experience I had in mind. But what I didn't realize though at the time was that there were other options that could completely transform this trip. For instance, you could take a speedboat, which was a faster way to travel between the islands, allowing you to spend more time exploring and even beating some of the crowds. They're not perfect though. They're noisy and you do miss out on some of the open views, but they're efficient. Then there's the traditional Thai longtail boat, which I've grown to love. They're slower than speedboats, but they offer an authentic and scenic ride with the wind in your face and stunning views of the islands as you pass by. And if you have the money, or you're with a group big enough to share the costs, renting a private catamaran or yacht can be a game changer. This will give you a much more personalized and luxurious experience as you visit the islands. Don't just book any boat trip. Choose the right one. When I was younger, the only thing I ever looked at when choosing a place to stay was the price. The cheaper, the better. I didn't care if there were 10 other people in the room, so long as it was cheap and near a bar, I was happy. But what I didn't realize was that I was missing out on one of the best parts of traveling in Thailand. Thailand is home to some of the most stunning and luxurious hotels in the world. And now staying in some of the country's best resorts is one of my favorite parts about traveling. But it's not just the luxury aspect that's fun. There are also some of the most creative and unique stays imaginable, with floating hotels on Chao Lan Lake and the River Kwai, glamping hotels and stays on boats. But Thailand can be pretty touristy, especially during peak season, but there is one surefire way to beat the crowds. Whilst most travelers are still sleeping off their hangovers, you can get out and start exploring. If you want to know what Kata Beach looks like when there's no one on it, get up as the sun rises and you'll have it all to yourself. Additionally, there are some boat tours or other tours that specialize in sunrise tours. They start around 6 a.m. and have you at places like Maya Bay by 7 a.m. before they get swarmed with crowds. So I've always thought that when I have kids, I was gonna have to give up on doing so much exploring. I mean, how can you keep up all this traveling when you're with a baby? That was until recently when I watched the film Up. In the film, if you haven't seen it, the main character is an old man and he didn't plan on having a kid tagging along on his grand adventure. But they ended up traveling together to far off distant lands, and the kid's curiosity and sense of adventure ended up making the trip more fun, even if he did drive him insane at times. After years of traveling in Thailand, I've met plenty of families exploring the country with young children. Even when it gets to remote places like Khao Sok National Park, it might take a little bit of extra planning, but it's absolutely doable. I'll be traveling a lot with my baby girl in the future, so I'll let you know how it goes. One comment that I see over and over again, whether it be on my YouTube channel or other people's channels, is that whatever place is too crowded or too touristy. And people say that over and over again that Phuket or Samui or Chiang Mai or Krabi is overcrowded. Now, in some ways, they're not wrong. Thailand is definitely a touristy country, and none of the best places to visit are off the beaten path. But all you have to do is venture a little bit away from those main areas to find less explored places if that's what you really want. Take Phuket, for example. It probably has the highest population of travelers from anywhere in the country. But if you venture away from that western strip of beaches, from Kamala to Kata Beach, you can find some amazing beaches with very few people on them. I actually got married on Phuket, and we chose the area around Cape Panwa because we knew we would have the beach almost to ourselves. But this is the case for pretty much everywhere in the country. Don't like Chiang Mai Old Town? Check out my room. Want to visit Koh Phangan, but don't want to be near the full moon party? Guess what? There's 30 more beaches you can choose from. One of the biggest concerns people have before coming to Thailand is about scams. But actually, Thailand is one of the safest countries I've ever been to. There's been numerous times where I've lost my wallet or my phone, and it's always made its way back to me with the help of some extremely generous people. There's also very little violent crime, so you don't need to worry about walking back at night. Unfortunately, there are a few scam artists and dodgy people that hang out around some of the tourist areas, knowing that they can make some quick money by scamming people. But I don't think you need to worry about it quite so much as some people make out to. This is a bottle of Chang beer. And I want you to imagine the bottle of beer in this glass represents the total amount of time you will spend on your Thailand trip. Let's say around 2 weeks. And each one of these glasses represents the locations that you'll visit. As I pour this beer in at each one of the glasses, you can see that if we spread it between too many of them, we end up with glasses that are too shallow, which only scratch the surface on what makes this place great. Whereas if we try and concentrate this into a smaller number of glasses, we can have a much deeper and much more fulfilling experience in each location. Cheers. But still, after all these lessons, there is one surefire way to wreck your trip. Check out this video here to find out the one way most people ruin their trip before it even begins.